So, hello again and welcome to your practice. Today, a Yin Yoga sequence designed to help improve and support the body's natural elimination and filtration associated, or a particularly good time of year to do this in the spring, where just like the earth around us is softening and getting kind of moist as the ground warms up a little bit. There's a lot of new life in the air. We're gonna do long holds of various poses that help clear out space in the body and encourage more fluid awareness, really, of sensation. That again will help support some of those processes like elimination, getting rid of some of the excesses that may have built up in the winter. So for a Yin Yoga practice, you want to support yourself as much as you need and use any props that will help you get comfortable. We'll start on our back. And so for this, I recommend a bolster or a blanket for underneath your chest. If you're going to use a blanket, you want to fold it up in such a way, maybe fold it into thirds, so that it's about the length of your back. And we're going to put this underneath the back, but also supporting the head. You want to make sure your head and neck are supported. So whatever you have, feel free to use that. And you can also just rest flat on the floor and make sure your neck feels extended, naturally long. If you're using a prop underneath your back, make sure your head and neck again are supported. And you can bend your knees, keeping your feet on the floor. This will just give you a little bit more stability. It will also help the lower back relax. So the lower back doesn't need to be on the bolster or blanket if you're using that. In fact, you might keep at least one hand space between your seat and your support. The goal of this pose, a supported supine resting pose, is to let the chest expand naturally with your breath. And again, making sure your head and neck feel comfortable. Lay your arms by your sides with the hands facing up. And if you feel good in your lower back, feel free to extend your legs out one at a time. Give yourself a moment to settle and arrive. And notice with every exhalation, if you can let go of anything you don't need, be that physical tension, mental activity, maybe any emotions or any other distractions that you may notice. With your inhale, just notice how you feel in your pose. And with your exhale, see if you can settle in a little bit more. Make any adjustments that you need. We're going to be in each of our poses today for about 3 minutes. You could always do a little bit more or less, depending on how this pose is working for you today. You'll notice, because we have the time to be in the pose and to experience it, you may notice that things change over time. The sensations you feel in your body may become more or less intense. And so if you feel the need to change something, maybe adding a little bit more support, going a little bit deeper in the pose, feel free to do that as you need. One more exhale here to actively release any holding, any tension you don't need. And for the last minute and a half here, we're going to practice a breathing exercise called Veloma. And this is about separating the breath into equal parts. So we're going to separate the breath into 3 parts: the lower, lowest part of your breathing room around the belly, the middle part where the ribs start and just above your navel, and the topmost or the uppermost part of your breathing room. These are the three more or less even spaces for your breath. And we're going to practice pausing in between the three areas of the breath as smoothly, as gently as you can, and then continuing the breath. Again, continuous and free. So to prepare, exhale completely, fully emptying the lungs. You can even squeeze your navel into the body to get that last air out. And with the lungs empty, begin your inhale in the lowest part of your breathing room, all the way up to the navel, and then pause. And then continue your inhale from the navel up into the chest, pausing when you get to about the middle of the chest or the nipple line. And then continue breathing in through the topmost part of your breathing room, filling the lungs as much as you comfortably can do so, before releasing the breath out, one long, smooth, continuous flow. So we're going to contrast that. Again, on an inhale, we'll divide the breath into three even parts. So you may need to play with it and adjust the pace of your breathing so that you have enough time to take a comfortable breath through all three areas of your breathing space, pausing at the top with full lungs before releasing the breath out, a smooth, soft, uninterrupted flow. I'm going to do that around 3 more times. Veloma 1 here, where we divide the inhales into 3 equal parts. Gentle pause. And letting the breath continue. And the exhales are long, quiet, and complete. See if you can really soften a little more with each exhale. At the end of your next full exhalation, you're going to return to normal or natural inhalations through the nose and fill the lungs up again a comfortable amount, preparing for part 2, Veloma 2. Where as you begin your exhale, we'll empty out the top third of the lungs down to the nipple line, pause, and continue exhaling down to the navel, pausing. And then complete your exhalation, getting all of the air out in that bottom third area of your breathing room. Gentle pause. And then continue again with a full, free, as fluid a sensation as you can observe with your inhalation. With that fullness on your exhalation, again, begin releasing the breath out. Gentle pauses in between the 3 areas of your breathing room, top, middle, and the bottom third. We'll continue like this again for 3 more rounds of smooth, sweet inhalations, reaching a comfortable fullness. And with your exhalation, slowing things down, taking the time to really pause and feel. And make sure at the end of every exhalation, you get the last bit of air out. Even add a gentle contraction of the navel into the body. And continue like that. 1 more round of breath. At the end of your third exhalation, we'll return to your natural breath, breathing in through the nose, and really see if you can let the breath be as smooth and still observe the spaciousness, all of that room for the breath in the different parts of your lungs, torso. Perhaps a gentle pause as you then release the breath out, again, as smoothly as you can. Taking your time, letting the breath be complete. And then when you're ready, we're going to gently come off of your support. So if you're using a bolster, you can just roll onto your arm and side. Remove that. Place it close by, as you may want it for some of the following poses. Just take a moment in a neutral position. Pause and observe. Veloma breathing exercise is a really great way to develop a little bit more control over the breath. Breath control is often related to self-control. And of course, it helps develop more awareness of the different aspects and parts of your breath. Using that slower rhythm really encourages the mind to be calm and the body to relax. So we're going to come into our first asana, our first comfortable seat. And this is also a reclined position on your back, where you bring the soles of the feet to touch. So reclined Cobbler's pose, or kind of making a diamond shape here with your legs. And you might want that bolster or perhaps a block or underneath the outside of your thighs. And you may have to place your feet either closer to your hips or farther away from your body so that the soles of both of the feet and also the toes of both feet touch each other. And your knees fall open in such a way you're going to feel a nice stretch here through the inside of your legs and especially the groin. And keep in mind that this stretch, this opening may change over time as we're here for about another 2.5 minutes. And so you really want to use support so that you can use the least effort necessary. Really not looking to use a lot of muscular action in this pose to maintain the legs, or no need to push them closer to the ground. We're going to be here for some time, and so we'll just allow gravity to do the good work here. And you use any support you need so that the sensation does not affect your ability to breathe deeply. That's why we started with our breathing exercise here, so that you can always return to that level of awareness of your breath in all of our poses today. So if you find that the sensation or the intensity of any of your poses has become so strong that you're not able to take a long and relaxed breath, then you may want to pause, come out of your pose, or just adjust, maybe adding a little bit more support, changing your alignment, so that you can settle back in, returning to stillness and allowing yourself to let go of any extra thinking, any to-do list or worries that might be cycling through your mind. And anytime you notice that your mind has wandered, just notice what has taken your attention. And then bring your full attention back to this pose, to being in this body, and begin again to follow your breath. We're going to enjoy 3 more mindful breaths here in reclining Cobbler's pose. taking your time to allow every exhale to be complete. And when you're ready, you're going to help yourself come out of the pose by using the hands on the outside of the legs. There's a little bit of engagement on the inside of the legs, but really help yourself out so that there's no strain coming in, especially not as we stay in these poses for a long time, or when we come out. One more pose here on our backs before we come up a little bit more. We're going to come into happy baby pose now. Always nice, though, to take a moment in a neutral pose to just observe and feel. And you're already feeling some of the effects of our first poses. So for happy baby pose, you want to keep your low back extended and resting on the support of the floor as you raise your legs and bend your knees. The knees are going to move in the direction of your armpits or your shoulders. And really try to keep your shoulder blades resting on the floor as you grab for your lower legs. You might grab your shins here. You might be able to reach all the way to your feet. If you can, well, again, try to grab for the inside of the foot this time, or if it feels better, the outside, the little toe side of the feet. And if you notice that your lower back has lifted, like so, off the ground, see if you can bend your knees more. Move them more in the direction of the ground and your shoulders to get that nice extension in the lower back. By holding here underneath the balls of the feet, you can lift the sole of the foot all the way towards the ceiling, even as you lower the knees towards the floor. And you might already be feeling a lot of sensation here. See if you can direct your attention to the area where you're feeling that sensation. Maybe it's in the outer hips, the groin, or again, the inner leg lines. And where we send our attention in yogic science, the energy of the breath, the prana, or your life force, will follow where you direct your attention. So that can be another way to deepen your practice and experience some of the more subtle benefits. Again, because we're going to be focusing all of our poses around this area of the body, the legs, inside and outside, and the hips and lower back. By also sending your awareness of your breath into that part of the body and into any sensations, you may also be able to enjoy it a little bit more, whatever it is you're experiencing. Take in always inhalations through the nose whenever possible. And if it feels good, breathing out through the nose or the mouth. See if you can notice as you inhale and send your prana, sending your chi into those parts of the body that you're feeling, that you're also nourishing those parts of the body. And as you exhale, the energy and the circulation of your vital life force is clearing out stagnation. It's opening up pathways, improving your neuromuscular connection, but also helping your body maintain its natural balance and harmony through healthy cycle and flow. I'm going to Bring your attention to your breath for 3 more breaths here. And see again with your inhalations, if there's any part of your body you could send a little bit more tender, loving awareness to. And with your exhalations, see if there's anything you might be holding, be that stiffness or resistance, or maybe just a tired feeling that you can let soften and dissolve. At the end of your 3rd breath, releasing your feet from your hands. And one more time, just pausing in any comfortable, neutral position where you can rest. Wonderful. When you're ready, we're going to roll over. You can either just roll onto your side or maybe roll up and down the spine. Nice way to massage the back. Just make sure you don't roll on your neck. If you like to roll, you can cross your knees and come up into hands and knees. Do just a little bit of mobilization of the spine, starting with shoulders over the wrists, knees under the hips, and arching the back on an inhale. On an exhale, rounding, dropping your head, letting it hang heavy as you look back between your legs. As you inhale, let your tailbone lift back and up as you look up. And as you exhale, drop the chin to the chest as you lift your navel and get really round. And we're not trying to work too hard here. Using the least effort possible and the most awareness of sensation and your breath as you alternate here between cat and cow 2 more times. At the end of your 2nd exhale, coming back into that neutral position, noticing the length and also the curves in your spine. When you're ready, we'll tuck the toes. Make sure your fingers are spread big. And on an inhale, lift your hips up as you come back and down with your feet for downward facing dog. It's going to be our transition pose for the next, or our place of transition between the next 2 poses. Let's see what side I want to show you first, probably left side. So you can start, if you like, with your left leg on an inhale, lifting it up. And exhale, bring that left knee right behind the left wrist for Pigeon Pose. And for this Pigeon Pose, just depending on how you feel in your hips and your knees, you may again want a bolster or a block for support. So you're going to use a bolster. Probably want to put it underneath that left sitting bone, or maybe a little bit farther back, so that you're feeling a stable foundation through your pelvis. So you also want that back leg, your extended leg, to be in line with your hip. So it's not flailing out to the side, or you don't feel like it's pinching inwards. You also don't want to feel any pinching sensation in your lower back. So you can keep your hands here very close to your hips, close to your body, and stay more upright in this pose. Or eventually you might come down lower, all the way down onto your forearm. So I'd like to show you a variation, especially if your knee in front is giving you problems and you're not able to rest in Pigeon Pose. And you could also do this very similar pose on your back, coming down onto your back. And you're going to just cross the left ankle over the right leg, right underneath the knee, and bring your right leg into your body as you hold the shin or maybe behind the thigh. This will still give you that big stretch in the outer left hip, the rotators for the hip, and it'll probably feel a lot easier in your lower back. So you'll be able to maintain that length in the lower back, which is what we want in this pigeon pose. But for my hips, it definitely helps me to have some support there underneath that front leg hip. So I have that feeling more of stability where I could even hold the body upright without using the hands. That's going to require more effort. So we're going to keep the hands here to keep this pose yin as opposed to getting into too much activity in yang. You can even draw your legs in towards your hips a little bit more. Notice how that affects the sensation. And if you're feeling good in your hips and your back, you can start to lower down by walking your hands forward, coming onto your forearms. With that back leg extended and right in line with the hips, we're also getting a nice stretch for the psoas, the hip flexor, or one of the main hip flexors in the back leg. Again, bringing the attention to your breathing. And as you inhale, maybe even visualizing the breath as a golden mist, cloud of light that brings moisture and energy, maybe just good feeling into the body. And as you exhale, allowing that mist, that cloud to become refined, to become more subtle, softening any hardness that you might find. And keeping and returning your attention to the breath. We're helping support the body's processes here, which in yin are really beneficial for our connective tissue. So the fascia that wraps around our muscles and connects muscles to bones. And because we take these long holds of the poses, and this tissue tends to be more dense and stiffer than our muscles, also colder, it benefits more for more time to help stretch out those cells and helps encourage a cycle of fluids through them. So when we come out of our poses, it's quite common actually after we've stretched them so long and fairly firm, as the fluids return to those poses when we come to those tissues, as we come out of the pose, you may experience soreness and tingling, and that's quite all right. It's very typical. It's also very healthy for these tissues. Now, what you need to do, though, is be able to distinguish between discomfort and strong sensation and pain. Please listen to your body and make sure at no point as you feel something sharp and feels like pain. But if it feels like just some big feelings, again, see if you can use your breath to allow yourself to marinate into those feelings a little bit more. Go ahead and sit your attention in that sensation for 3 more breaths. Good. When you feel ready, slowly coming out, walking your hands back closer to the body, perhaps removing any support you were using. We're going to bring that hip down to the ground and the back leg up and around for a seated spinal twist. Now for this pose, you may need to adjust your hips with your hands or move your legs until you can get both sides of your hips resting on the floor. You might also want to sit up on a blanket under one side, if that helps. And if your knee is giving you trouble, the bottom knee, you could also extend that bottom leg. Both knees are drawing in towards your center, so closer towards your navel, in the middle line. And you want to sit in such a way that you can lift your spine easily. So sit up tall. Now, if you're with me and the right knee is on top, we're going to begin our twist to the right side. And if your left knee is on top, you'll just twist the other way. So usually we twist in the direction of that upper knee. That's a little deeper twist. But if that felt uncomfortable, you could also twist away from that. Or if you needed a little bit more space for the belly. Wherever you are, ground down through your pelvis, through your sitting bones, and sit up tall on an inhale. You can bring that right arm behind you if you're twisting to the right. And as you exhale, begin your twist from your lower back, through the mid back, finally the upper back. Don't even need to move the head yet. Let's inhale again for length before we get into the fullest expression of the twist. And as you exhale, allow your breath to guide you to kind of gently wash you like a wave into a comfortable version of this twist. Eventually, you'll bring your head and your neck into the twist, looking back behind you. You can use that front arm, your left arm, to hold the outside of the knee. Some of you, if you're more flexible, you could even bend the elbow and use the outside of the arm against the outside of that knee. For me, it feels like I have to use too much effort there and the pose becomes quite more active muscularly. And I'm looking to let more of the structure of the body hold the pose. Hands there just for reference and a little bit of traction. But I don't want to force. I'm not interested in working too hard here. Instead, you might even close your eyes, and with your inhale, see if you can bring your inner gaze to the space between the vertebrae in your spine, expanding them as you get taller on your inhale. And as you exhale, softening all of that tissue in between the bones, these vertebral discs responsible for and for so much of our movement and our support to our center line. Really allow us to hold and move the body in any way, in any form we might like to take. And twists are really good here because they, again, encourage elimination, squeezing the organs of the body around our gut. We're encouraging peristalsis, that movement of digested food and energy through the intestine. So again, inhale and see if you can draw your attention into any sensations. Quite normal to hear some sounds in the body also before or after our twists. And as you exhale, imagine the breath like a wave washing away any old stagnation or byproducts you no longer need. Rest your attention here for 3 more breaths. When you're ready, coming out of your twist on an inhale, gently unwinding, lifting that back arm. And if you like, you could bring your hands over to the opposite side for a gentle counter twist. Before returning your hands in front and uncrossing your legs, we'll transition again through a downward facing dog. So you could come to hands and knees, or just directly lift the hips And let your body, let your mind settle down again in a neutral pose. It's one of our few active poses in today's sequence. But you still want to feel that same quality of stability and ideally ease with each breath. When you're ready, we'll do the second side, getting my prop ready for that side. And I'll lift the second leg up, right leg. And exhale, bring the knee right behind the wrist of the right hand. Now this will cause the shin bone to be a little bit more parallel to the top of your mat, and you might want to bring the foot a little closer to the hips if that feels better in your knee. One side can be very different than the other. So even if you didn't try a supported option on the other side, you might want to try one here if you're feeling like it's tougher, if you're feeling more resistance. Now I definitely notice one side of my hip is much tighter than the other. And that may also make me less able to feel and be aware of the alignment of the body in other places. So I'm going to look back at that back leg and make sure it's following right in line with the front side of the hip, left hip. And I might keep my hands closer to my hips to allow me to keep that extension in the lower back, while using my breath to allow my body weight to sink down into the stability of the hips. Take your time getting in and coming out to find your version of the pose that's going to work best for your body today. Again, we're looking for a nice stretch here in the outer hip rotators of the front leg. And if it's more accessible to get that stretch on your back, bending the knee and placing the foot over the opposite leg, and feel free to take that version of pigeon today. Noticing especially any of those bigger sensations as you find your comfortable seat in the pose. And then as you sit a while, see if you can stay with that ebb and flow of sensation while you rest your attention in the breath. So if things start to become a little easier, begin to feel more relaxed, more comfortable in the body, in the pose, that's a good indication that you might want to go a little deeper, but only if you're feeling that. If coming onto your forearms feels good, you could do that. Even resting your forehead on your fists on the back of your hands, letting the upper body be completely passive. While again, we allow gravity and this traction through the legs to give us this nice stretch in the hip, and even a little bit the hip flexors of the back leg. Using visualization of the breath, if you like that, can be a nice way to help attune your awareness to some of the more subtle aspects of the pose. As we rest here for the next minute or so, and continue resting your attention in the breath, I invite you to think about how these pauses and a yoga practice in particular can help remind us and even renew our connection with the natural world which we're a part of. Just as nature is warming up in spring and things are often a little more rainy, a little bit more moist, a spring seasonal practice, this yin practice, can be a great way to let the body, well, it's very common actually that our body gets a little bit moist in spring as we catch colds and have maybe more mucus, more allergies. And these are just signs, again, of our body doing those natural cleansing processes, that filtration and elimination that helps the body restore its natural balance. So for the last 3 breaths here, see if you can again send your attention of breathing into any feelings, and also send an awareness of moisture there, of softness. And as you exhale, allow that flow of moisture, the body like a stream of liquid sensations, to just cycle, to just move freely. As you're ready, coming out mindfully, using your hands closer to the body to lift back up, removing any props you might have before bringing that back leg around and up to the front, and finding a balanced and comfortable seat. So it helps me to make sure I move my sitting bones a little wider. By having a broader base through the seat, I can sit up taller a little bit easier. Both knees are moving towards the center line. It's okay if they're not right in the middle. Sit up tall first. And begin your twist in the lower back as you exhale, bringing that back arm behind you as you start from the bottom, moving through the middle, a little bit the upper back. And I like to take my time, especially if I'm going to be holding a relatively deep twist for a long time, then there's certainly no need to rush. The head and the neck are the last things to come around. And you have that front arm there to grab by hugging the outside of the knee. You may need to reposition your feet, keeping the ankles a little bit active. Will just help the knees stay in line with your toes and your hips. And by feeling good through your hips and your knees, you'll be able to sit up a little bit taller in your twist. And exhale to just soften in a little deeper. See if you can bring your awareness also to your shoulders. And notice if one shoulder is higher, closer to your ears, or a little bit tighter than the other. This might bring a lot of tension also into the neck. So as you lift the crown of your head up, perhaps reposition that back arm a little closer or a little farther to the body so that you can relax both shoulders a little bit more equally. Sometimes nice to move the head, smallest part of the spine rotating when we're in a big spinal twist. In the Yin pose, and for about the next minute and a half, we're going to want to settle in and enjoy a little bit more stillness. Even in that stillness, you may notice the mind continues to wander. And that's okay. That's the nature of the mind. The mind creates or receives thoughts. Just notice when your thoughts have taken your attention. And after you notice that, with your next breath, bring your full attention back to here and now. Give yourself that time to just notice and feel. Go ahead and notice 3 more luxurious breaths here. And at the end of your 3rd breath, coming out gently, inhaling up and around, and maybe twisting gently to the other side. A bit of a bend if you like. Before we come up into a similar pose to where we started our asanas today. This is also where the feet are together, so bound feet, Baddha Konasana, or a seated cobbler's pose. Again, we have that diamond shape through the legs. And you might want to move the feet farther away or closer together, just depending how you feel through the legs. You might expand your seat a little bit wider again so you can sit up taller. And you want to rest your hands on your lower legs, or maybe you can already grab all the way to your feet. You want to hold somewhere where you can hold without any difficulty. And where again, you can lift the whole spine, lift your heart. And exhale, we're going to soften into a forward bend in this seated cobbler's pose. And again, for a yin practice, many times less is more. So you might want to use more support so that you can work a little bit less and enjoy the pose a little more. If you have a bolster or anything that's kind of tall here, you could stack some blocks or books. You can also rest your forehead in such a way that the head can hang heavy, the neck can relax. Again, we're very passive with the upper body here. The hands just resting on the legs or the feet for support so that we can add that relaxation into the effect of gravity. And we just let go into this forward fold. Sometimes you have to play with it and try several props to get the right mix. It's going to work for you. If you do rest your forehead on something, especially if it's something a little bit more firm, just see if you can pay attention that the space of the forehead, the flesh of your forehead is drawn down towards your eyes so that your whole forehead is nice and spacious, nice and smooth in the skin there. Almost right. Again, once you've settled in your stable, comfortable seat, and invite the full attention, the full effect of your concentration to rest in any sensation that you might feel. And see if you can marry that sensation with an awareness of the energizing, rejuvenating, and expanding aspect of every inhale. And just relish in that softening, releasing aspect of every exhale. wherever you are. Enjoy 3 more breaths. And as you're ready, help yourself back up and out into a comfortable seat. We're going to finish, as we often do, in a final resting pose, Shavasana, a classic way to rest where you will lay the body back down on the ground so that the whole back is extended, arms by your side, and you could keep your knees bent and even rest the knees on one another with your feet open wide. You might try that and see how it feels, especially since we did so much work here through the inside and now the outside of the hips and legs. That might be just the right thing for you. Or you could also take a supported Shavasana using your blanket or your bolster underneath your knees and allowing the feet to fall open to the sides, the legs completely relaxed. Take a moment to arrive in your comfortable resting pose. You can rest on your side or seated in a chair. Take whatever support you need, maybe including adding some layers, a blanket, or new clothing, so that you will be comfortable and so that you can relax in stillness, undisturbed, for the next few moments. Taking time again to notice any sensations you feel, especially any big feelings in all of the parts of the body that we focused on today. And as you exhale, notice what happens, notice what changes as you bring your awareness and your breath into those sensations. Continue using your inhales to explore the inner space of the body, noticing its expansion, the movement. And as you exhale, allow that space to soften and relax. Once you feel your whole body settling in, resting easefully, then bring your full attention one more time to your breath, wherever you notice it. Perhaps you feel especially drawn to the rise of the belly and the fall of each breath. Maybe you notice your breath more in the chest or in the throat. Or if you can feel the breath very present at the tip of the nose, then bring your full attention to that place where you notice the breath the most. And then just allow your attention to rest in every inhale, observing, and in every exhale, just feeling, just enjoying. Feel free to rest here as long as you need. And when you feel ready, slowly and gently bring your awareness back to the space you're in, back to the body you're in. And gradually start to deepen your breathing. With the increased motion and expansion of the breath, the body will energize. When your body feels light and ready for movement, you start to wake up the physical body. Any small movements that feel nice, fingers and toes, hands and feet. You can also take a big stretch of the whole body again, reaching arms overhead and getting long from your fingers through your toes, before bending your legs one at a time and hugging your legs into your chest. When you're ready, you can roll over to your right side, or the side that's right for you. And then use your hands to help yourself up into one last stable, comfortable seat. Thank you for sharing your practice with us here today. May it benefit you and all those around you. Namaste.